The Department of Justice just announced a new antitrust lawsuit against Apple. We're awaiting comments from Attorney General Merrick Garland any minute now. After a years-long investigation, the suit alleges that Apple created a monopoly on the smartphone market by blocking its competitors from accessing certain iPhone features. Attorney General Merrick Garland says if left unchallenged, Apple will only continue to strengthen its smartphone monopoly. Apple says in a statement, quote, "This lawsuit threatens who we are and the principles that set Apple products apart in fiercely competitive markets." Let's bring in ABC business reporter Alexis Christoforous, ABC News contributor Brian Buckmeyer, and ABC's Jack Date for more. Jack, let's start with the basics here. What exactly is this lawsuit alleging?
Right. So the Department of Justice, along with 16 states and districts, attorneys generals, are going after Apple for what they call anti-competitive practice. They say that Apple is actively blocking competitors in super apps, what they call super apps, suppressing cloud streaming services from competitors, stopping cross-platform messaging. Things like if you're messaging with people who are on the Android platform, you may recognize they have a green bubble on their messages with some diminished features. And so practices like that, they say, are anti-competitive and monopolistic, and ultimately they're costing consumers more money. And that's something the Justice Department is aggressively going after them to try to bring an end to. Now, this has been years in the making, and resolving this could take many, many more years. Apple is an absolute colossus in the tech world, and bringing the suit to some sort of conclusion is not going to happen anytime soon, I would suggest. Apple, for its part, says that they make they bring their customers a magical experience, they say, and they enhance their privacy and security with their practices. And so they think that the government's heavy hand will diminish some of the features that Apple customers have come to expect.
Alexis, how did this investigation start to begin with? What's the context here of how this started?
This is indeed years in the making, and Apple has actually been able to evade the DOJ, at least, when it comes to U.S. law. They're the last of the 4 big mega tech companies to have an antitrust lawsuit be brought against them. We know that there are already lawsuits outstanding against the other big ones, Amazon, Meta, and Google. And all along, there's been this talk that they've squashed competition in the App Store, that they're charging high fees, that they have a so-called walled garden around their hardware and software that makes it difficult for competing tech companies to use and enter sort of the Apple ecosystem. I mean, when you think about it, if you have an iPhone and you're thinking about going out and buying a laptop, you might think twice about going outside the Apple ecosystem because it's harder to integrate it with your hardware. And that's sort of at the crux of this DOJ case.
I've been there myself. I think
me too.
Several have, right? So, Brian, antitrust cases, as Alexis said, they're far from unheard of. Several of these big tech companies have antitrust cases against them right now, and yet you don't often hear of them making much progress. How hard is this kind of case to bring against a company like Apple?
It's extremely difficult because of, one, who you're going up against. I mean, compare what we're seeing against Apple as to the 90s where we saw a case against Microsoft, a large entity that ultimately, I think many critics say that they came out being a better corporate or organization afterwards. But in order to start this litigation, to continue it, and also to try to get the company to change in some meaningful way is a difficult endeavor. It's going to see what we're going to see is a giant pushback from Apple, and what I want to see is their response to these allegations, not just from a PR perspective, but how they're saying they are allowing other people to integrate, but we all know that there are some difficulties from that. I mean, I don't text Dr. Patel because I don't like seeing that green bubble, and I communicate by
Someone
memes.
was going to throw his name in there.
Absolutely. I was going to do it first. And
Mike Muse, too, by the way.
Yeah, I don't communicate with both of those people through memes because it just doesn't work. And so I think from that standpoint, we all understand that integration and how that operates, but what's Apple going to say to push back from what we all typically know and experience?
It creates a third-class system, right? It's like, well, I have a blue bubble, you have a green bubble. That means I have an iPhone and you have an Android. It's bizarre that they don't.
Listen, Google Tech Policy Fellow Mike Muse would take you up on that, saying, my phone takes better pictures and it's a better phone and so on and so forth. We are not, as a news organization, saying any of that, of course. That's between Apple and Google. But, Jack, talk to me about these cases. How does this lawsuit against Apple compare to some of these others against the big tech companies?
Well, I think one big thing you're going to see is just the amount of time it's going to take to resolve. Again, it's going to be a pretty good time to be an antitrust lawyer in Washington. But ultimately, DOJ is saying that they're they're going after Apple on principle, that they feel like they have to, that these practices from Apple at their core, even though consumers may enjoy some of these features and may enjoy the compatibility of Apple devices and working in that Apple universe and how seamlessly those products work, at their core, those are anti-competitive practices. They hurt competition, and ultimately they hurt the consumer. They cost the consumer.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.